Today we're diving deep into a game that I've had a complicated relationship with. One that has pulled me in and pushed me away more than once. We're talking about Code Vein. Now, if you're not familiar, imagine a post-apocalyptic world, but instead of zombies, you've got these supernatural beings called Revenants. Powerful, immortal vampires with a thirst for blood, but also a duty to protect humanity. It's a world utterly devastated by a mysterious catastrophe, where humanity clings to survival in scattered strongholds. You awaken as a revenant with amnesia, and your journey begins to uncover the truth about this ruined world and your own past. This game has been lovingly, or perhaps not so lovingly, dubbed Anime Dark Souls. And when you see some of the environments, like the Cathedral of the Sacred Blood, for example, you can see why. I'm sure you, as well as me, if you've played this game, immediately thought Anor Londo. All you have to do is replace obnoxious archers with complicated layout, and you're there. Despite its cool premise, its interesting visuals, and what looked like some solid combat, I just couldn't get Code Vein to click for me. I pick it up, play it for a few hours, and then put it down and move on to something else. I did this probably 3 or 4 times. I just never stuck with it. But with the announcement of a sequel coming in the not-so-distant future, my motivation was renewed and I decided to pick it back up again and give it another try. And this time, really give it a try. Well, now I've beaten the game, I got the true ending, and I'm here to talk about my experience. I want to talk about what I thought Code Vein did really well, what left me wanting more, and whether or not this anime-infused Souls-like is ultimately worth your time. Alright, let's kick things off with what Code Vein does well. First off, the game's art style is a win in my book. It's got this fantastic, animated, highly stylized look that I really enjoy. It's not aiming for hyperrealism, and that's its strength. The character models are distinct and well done. The enemy designs are grotesque, and overall it's a vibrant visual identity that instantly sets it apart from other Souls-likes, leaning heavily into its anime roots in the best way possible. Speaking of character models, let's talk about the unsung hero of many modern RPGs, character customization. And in Code Vein, it's top tier. You can craft some truly unique looking protagonists here, and I spent a long time in this menu. You've got an insane amount of control over everything from eye color to hair, body proportions, scars, and a vast array of accessories that you can place almost anywhere. I really appreciated how you could access the full customization menu at any time from your home base. You want to change your hair color because your current shade isn't matching your new blood code? Go for it. Decided you actually want to get that facial tattoo? Sure, go right ahead. The game's got you covered. My only minor gripe is that I wish there were a few more outfits beyond the initial selection, but honestly what's there is incredibly well done and it allows for a lot of player creativity. Now the next thing I want to talk about is where Code Vein truly differentiates itself from other Souls-likes. Instead of the typical level up system where you allocate points to strength, dexterity, etc. and you're largely locked into a build, Code Vein uses blood codes. Think of blood codes as classes or archetypes like a fighter blood code or a caster blood code. You unlock new blood codes as you progress, often by defeating powerful bosses or finding hidden vestiges. More on those later. Each blood code comes with its own unique set of base stats, weapon proficiencies, and most importantly, gifts. Gifts are basically your active and passive skills, ranging from powerful offensive spells and weapon buffs to defensive maneuvers and healing abilities. As you use a specific gift with its associated blood code, you gain proficiency with it. Once you've mastered a gift, which doesn't take too long, you can inherit it and then use it with any other blood code. This creates an incredible amount of flexibility and experimentation with your builds. You're not locked into one playstyle. You can mix and match powerful offensive gifts from one blood code with defensive gifts from another, or stack passive buffs to create a truly devastating combination. For example, you could be primarily a heavy weapon user, but equip a gift from a caster to buff your weapon with elemental damage, or run a fast attacking build with a healing gift from a support blood code. This unique approach to character builds isn't perfect. Sometimes certain combinations are clearly more optimal, but it's a refreshing change of pace from what we typically see in these games, and it really empowers the player's choice. One of Code Vein's most notable and, in my opinion, strongest features is its robust companion system. Almost from the very beginning, you'll have an AI-controlled companion fighting alongside you. You'll meet a diverse cast of characters like the stoic Yakumo, the agile Mia, the knowledgeable Louise, and more. Each companion has their own unique combat style, abilities, and dialogue that provide more lore and personality as you travel. This system is absolutely fantastic because it lets you, the player, directly tailor the game's difficulty to your liking. Want a tougher, more classic Souls-like challenge? You can choose to leave your companion behind at the base and face the dangers of the Lost solo. Want a bit more breathing room? Maybe an easier time with a tough boss? Bring a companion along. They can draw aggro, provide crucial healing, buff your stats, or offer vital range support depending on who you choose. It's a brilliant way to make the game more accessible without sacrificing its core challenge for those who seek it. The next point I want to touch on might sound like a minor quality of life feature, but I really enjoyed it. Code Vein features a dynamic mini-map that uncovers as you explore new areas, along with a handy percentage counter letting you know how much of a specific zone you've explored. While I believe that a mini-map doesn't belong in every Souls-like, the joy of discovering shortcuts and the stress of getting lost is part of the experience in games like Dark Souls. For Code Vein, it works well. Some of the levels can be sprawling, labyrinthian, and interconnected with a lot of hidden paths and secrets. Having that visual aid along with a clear indication of how much of an area you've cleared is really helpful for people like me who like to explore the entire level. It significantly reduces the aimless wandering and frustration that can sometimes plague these types of games, allowing you to focus on the combat and story. It's a thoughtful addition that respects the player's time. Another neat and incredibly useful feature is the depths. Think of these as optional, compact, self-contained dungeon areas that are separate from the main story levels. They're typically straightforward. You enter, traverse a relatively small map with a few enemy encounters, and then face a boss. Their primary purpose? Farming. I really enjoyed the depths because they provide a simple, efficient, and low-stakes way of acquiring new materials for upgrading your weapons and blood veils, as well as plenty of haze, which is the game's currency, think souls, used for leveling up and purchasing items. They're much simpler and less convoluted than, say, the Chalice dungeons in Bloodborne, making them a much more user-friendly and approachable tool for grinding or for testing out new builds without risking progress in the main story. They're quick, rewarding, and a great way to power up if you're struggling. So based on the last few points I've mentioned, the adjustable difficulty through companions, the incredibly flexible blood code build system, the helpful mini-map, and the straightforward farming in the depths, I believe Code Vein is an excellent game for newcomers to the Souls-like genre. It provides a lot of quality-of-life features and systems that can help ease players into the genre's core mechanics and challenges, without being overly punishing right out of the gate. If you've been curious about Souls-likes, intrigued by their reputation for challenge and deep combat, but intimidated by them, this is a great entry point. It teaches you about stamina management, dodge rolls, parrying, and understanding enemy attack patterns, but it does so with a generous hand, allowing you to learn at your own pace and find strategies that work for you. And the last point that I want to touch on here is that this game is 100% anime. From its character designs, the dramatic over-the-top gift animations, the storytelling, the outfits, and even the way characters emote, it fully embraces its anime identity. If you're a fan of anime, this is a huge positive. The aesthetics, the dramatic flair, the storytelling, it will likely work for you. However, If you're not the biggest fan of anime and some of its more common tropes, well, prepare yourselves because that brings us into the bad section. As much as I ended up enjoying Code Vein, it's certainly not without its share of noticeable flaws and frustrations. Yes, I'm putting anime in both the good and bad sections of this video. And there's a clear reason why. While the art style itself is fantastic, some of the ingrained anime tropes can be a bit much and actively detract from the experience. For example, there are scenes where characters stand around delivering extensive exposition when the narrative demands some action, urgency, or at least a bit more dynamic animation. And then there's the ever-present theme of the power of friendship, which, while a core message, is sometimes delivered so overtly and repeatedly that it can feel a bit trite, almost like a checklist item.
I went through some really nasty rejections back when I became a Revenant. Honestly, I was right on the brink of losing myself. It was my friends that pulled me back, kept me safe. Bunch of sentimental fools. I'll keep him safe, no matter what happens. That's how much my friends mean to me. And now I've got 3 more sheep to look after. A man's work is never done. So just don't worry about it.
Many of the supporting characters also fall into pretty common anime archetypes, which can make them feel a bit less unique. Also, it's really hard to take any emotional moments that might happen in the story seriously when you're talking to characters that look like this. And on a purely personal yet incredibly strong nitpick, I absolutely despise the trend of using a jacket as a cape with the sleeves just flapping uselessly in the wind. This is something that bugs me across all games and all mediums, so it's just something I noticed in Code Vein and wanted to bring up. The next point I wanted to talk about in this section of the video is the process of restoring vestiges and story delivery. A huge chunk of Code Vein's story and lore is conveyed through a system called Vestiges. These are crystallized memories you find scattered throughout the world, often in hidden corners or dropped by specific enemies. When you pick one up and bring it back to your home base, you can restore it. This triggers a short cinematic sequence, typically showing a past event related to the memories you found, gradually piecing together the shattered history of the world and the characters. While it's an interesting concept for drip-feeding lore and building a sense of mystery, the execution leaves a lot to be desired. During these memory sequences, your character is forced to walk incredibly slow at a snail's pace while the cinematic plays out around you. These sequences feel extremely long, and you're essentially just watching and listening, unable to skip or fast forward the individual lines. After a while, especially in the later stages of the game, when you're collecting many vestiges, I found myself begrudgingly starting these restorations only to quickly skip the entire sequence just because they became so tedious. The pacing was so slow, and frankly many of the story elements conveyed weren't impactful enough to warrant the forced, drawn-out experience. It feels like a chore rather than an engaging way to learn about the world. Moving on, I want to talk about a pretty common pitfall for many action RPGs, and Code Vein definitely falls into it. The beginning of the game throws a lot of systems at you all at once. You're introduced to blood codes, gifts, ichor, companions, different weapons, blood veils, your armor that also governs ichor gain, weapon transformations, crafting, upgrading. It's just a lot within the first few hours of the game. Code Vein does its best to explain them through pop-up tutorials and initial character dialogue, but it can be a bit overwhelming trying to grasp how everything functions and synergizes initially. I know I definitely felt a little bit lost, not fully understanding the best way to utilize my gifts or how to effectively manage my ichor well into the early hours of my playthrough. It takes a little bit of time for all these systems to click for you and to truly feel comfortable experimenting and optimizing your build. It's a steep learning curve right out of the gate that could deter some players. Unfortunately, another weak point for this game is enemy variety. It's quite noticeable over a full playthrough. You'll encounter a relatively small pool of different enemy types, and you'll see them recycled throughout the entire game. Often the only difference is a palette swap to indicate they're stronger, or perhaps they've been given a slightly different weapon or attack pattern. This repetition can lead to combat feeling a bit stale and predictable after a while, especially when exploring new zones. As for bosses, my experience was quite mixed, ultimately leaning towards them being on the easier side. I'll admit I struggled with a couple of the earlier bosses when I didn't have many gifts unlocked, fewer healing items, and I was still figuring out the combat flow. But as the game progressed, as my build became more robust, and as I gained access to more powerful combinations of gifts and stronger weapons, I found myself consistently beating bosses on my first or second attempt. Many boss patterns felt quite telegraphed, and with the right companion and a decent build, I often felt overpowered. While this may be a positive for the players who don't enjoy the intense, often brutal difficulty of some Souls-like bosses, for those seeking a true test of skill and prolonged challenge, Code Vein's bosses might feel a bit too easy and less memorable. Finally, I did encounter a few technical issues during my playthrough on PC, which, while not constant game breakers, were consistently annoying. I experienced some minor stuttering whenever I entered a new zone or transitioned between major areas. I also had one truly frustrating moment where a game crashed right after defeating a boss, forcing me to refight it from scratch. Since the bosses aren't that difficult, it wasn't a huge deal, but it's always annoying to have your progress reset. And for some bizarre reason, every single time I launched the game, it would cause my desktop background image to go completely black. It would return to normal after a quick restart of my PC, but it was a persistent and weird bug that I couldn't find a solution for online. Minor, yes, but definitely strange and a bit of a nuisance every time I wanted to play. Overall, I genuinely enjoyed Code Vein, but it is far from perfect. It carves out its own unique niche in the Souls-like genre, with its undeniably unique art style, the incredibly flexible blood code system, and the welcome inclusion of companions that thoughtfully make the game more accessible without removing its challenge. I also really appreciated the minimap and the depths for streamlining progression and farming. I really do think that it's an excellent game to try if you're curious about the genre but have been intimidated by its reputation for brutal difficulty. It provides a more forgiving entry point, allowing you to learn the ropes and adapt at your own pace, which is rare and valuable in this genre. For that reason alone, I think it deserves a look from newcomers. However, its over-reliance on certain anime tropes that can derail serious moments, the tedious Vestige system for story delivery, the initial information overload, the noticeable lack of enemy variety and somewhat easy bosses do hold it back from true greatness in my eyes. It feels like a game with incredible ideas that sometimes stumble in their execution. That said, despite its flaws, I would generally recommend Code Vein. It's a solid Souls-like with its own unique, very anime flavor that stands out in a crowded genre. And with a sequel now officially announced, I'm genuinely excited to see how Bandai Namco and Shift build upon this foundation. I'm hoping they refine the Vestige system, expand on enemy and environment variety, and perhaps even tweak the difficulty for those who crave a tougher challenge. There's a lot of potential here, and I'm optimistic for what's next. So those are my thoughts on Code Vein. Have you played it? What were your thoughts? Did you love it, hate it, or are you like me and had a complicated on-again, off-again relationship with it? Did you find the bosses too easy or just right? Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel for more gaming content. You can also check out my other videos on Lies of P, Mortal Shell, The Last Faith, and more right here on the channel. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will catch you in the next video.
A gate. Looks like we've still got a ways to go.
We're going